to Girl Talk. Thank you for joining us today. I have Andrew Salib with me. And what's going to be really fun about Girl Talk today, it's not going to be Girl Talk, it's going to be Guy Talk. I invited Andrew to be with me today. Andrew's in his mid-20s.
Yep.
And we're going to speak about what that journey's like for single guys and whether, marriage is in the picture or is it an idea or does it have to be? And we're just going to have fun in this discussion. There's no right or wrong answer, so we don't want to be judged, but you're welcome to join us. So Andrew, where are you in life now? What are you doing?
So I graduated college a few years ago, 5 years ago now, I think. Just working in the area.
In the area?
Yep.
So being part of the Egyptian culture, and I know a lot of our viewers are basically Egyptian, but there's also non-Egyptian. I've always grown up hearing that everyone is to get married and just have children. Mm-hmm. Do you believe that?
I think it depends on the person. So I think marriage is good for most, but I can't speak for everyone. So if that's not a lifestyle that you want, then I don't think you need to be forced into it. Because if you're forced into it, you're not going to have a good relationship at the end of the day.
Right. So basically, it's not fair to frown upon people when they say, I hear a lot of people today saying, I just don't want to get married. And everyone looks at them like, what's wrong with you? God created you for marriage. Mm-hmm. Do you believe that? Do you believe God created? Because they reference Adam and Eve. Mm-hmm. When God created Adam, he gave him Eve.
I think it depends why that person is saying that. I've been hearing a lot more about that, but a lot of it is just, people had bad experiences, things like that, or, emotionally not ready, or they're not ready in life, with work, whatever it is. So I think it depends why. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are very independent too, especially, young people working in this area, in the U.S. in general, and especially in Western cultures. So I think it really depends why you feel that way. Mm-hmm. If you don't want to get married because you want to live alone and do your own thing for the rest of your life, I would say go for it. But, okay. If you've had bad experiences, I think there's ways to get out of that, like kind of funk, talk to people, things like mm-hmm. that. It's, there's always going to be bad experiences, but there's always good experiences.
That's true. I mean, just because you have one bad experience doesn't shut it down for everyone. But I think there's a misconception in our Christian community that when God says in Genesis he created Adam and then he gave Adam Eve, mm-hmm. that it's either you are going to get married, and if you choose not to get married, then you go into some type of ministry or serve God, mm-hmm. because ultimately God created us for fellowship and marriage. Either we're going to marry a person here or we get married to God. And I'm finding like your generation and being raised here in America, a little different than being raised in Egypt, a lot of young people don't believe that. They believe what you just said. There's nothing wrong with living for yourself and being independent. Mm-hmm. But a lot of Christians will argue that that's a selfish lifestyle. What do you say to that?
I wouldn't think it's selfish. I think if what's the point of being in a relationship if you don't want it? Right. That's not fair to you. It's not fair to your partner. There is a lot of pressure, though, from the Egyptian community, from Coptic community to get married. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, if you're unhappy, what's the point? Mm-hmm. I think a relationship can be good and it can be bad. Mm-hmm. It can help bring you up, but it can also bring you down at the same time, especially if you don't want it.
Right.
So for me, it's if your heart's not in it, if you're not wanting to get married, what's the point?
I agree. And I also, this whole theory about if you're not going to get married, then you should go into some type of ministry. Mm-hmm. I mean, what are we going to have, all monks and bishops? There's no way. But I think also because we limit ministry. I mean, we don't realize that we could be sharing the gospel in our job,
Absolutely.
At work. We could be serving the homeless. We could be doing so much. So I think that's where the misunderstanding mm-hmm. is. We all are called to devote our lives to Christ. Whether we're married to a person or married to the Lord, we are all called to serve God. Right. But I think with you being in your mid-20s and a young man, that's very young for a man, do you feel the pressure? Like, do you feel that's just like, because I know my daughters feel it, mm-hmm. and they're in their 20s, but do you feel girls are more pressured, or are you feeling the same pressure like the girls are?
So I think females definitely feel more pressure overall. And especially come sometimes with Egyptian culture, a lot of a girl's value, unfortunately, is placed upon, who you get married to and what you do for work. Young ladies are, they're working towards their career. They're still, kind of establishing themselves. Whereas a male, it's okay for him to get married in his 30s, 40s, whatever.
Right.
I would say I'm definitely starting to feel that pressure a little bit more after, I turned 26. But I kind of don't let it get to me, I feel like people always have a comment to say, but, at the end of the day, if someone comes along, makes me happy, whatever, I'll go for it. But I don't think there's a reason to get married just to get married.
Right.
Or to rush into anything or
Because you're being pressured.
Right.
So when you say you're being you're feeling it more now that you're 26, is it comments people make? Or is it because a lot of your friends are married?
I'd say it's a little bit of both. I feel like, especially in Egyptian culture, it's like, get married.
Right,
What
right.
are you waiting for? And, people date for longer here. They get to know each other longer. And I appreciate that. But also, that can also lead to a little bit probably more issues at the same time.
Right.
And then, more and more of my friends are getting married. And I'm happy for them. But it's not like I envy them. It's not like, why not me?
Okay.
Because, when the right opportunity comes, then you do it. Because,
Right.
you see them, they're happy, and they're happy with that person specifically. There's no reason, I guess, for me to.
So what I'm hearing you say is your friends being married does not apply pressure to you. I mean, you're happy for them, but it's not something that you're saying, oh my gosh, I'm going to be the last one in my group of friends to be married.
Personally, for me, I'm not worried about that.
Okay.
I focus a lot on my work and
Right.
and what I do, so I'm not too concerned with that.
Okay. We're going to wrap this episode up right here, and we're going to be back in a few minutes. And I want to touch up on something Andrew said regarding single women pursuing their career and the issues that come with that. And we'll be right back. Welcome back to Girl Talk. Thank you for being with us today. If you're just tuning in now, I've got Andrew Salib, and we're just speaking about marriage from a guy's perspective and a single man, and just the issues that come with it or don't come with it, maybe sometimes being single. Does it really eliminate issues? We'll learn more about that. But we ended our last episode with Andrew said something really important about, a lot of women today are more independent, to be honest, and pursuing their careers. And when they pursue their careers, they end up getting married older. But there's also a complete misunderstanding, at least in the Egyptian culture, I can't speak for the Western culture, or maybe it's there too, that when a woman waits too long and she's become too independent because she's lived, some women are waiting until, they're not getting married till their 40s now. And they've become so independent, it's very hard for them to actually be in a marriage. So it's hard for them to get married. Would that be something that would turn you off from a girl, like a woman that's older and she's more independent and she's so career driven?
For me personally, no. That's what I prefer. So for me, I know what my goals are. I have my 5, 10, 15-year-old goals, right? And I like to see that in a partner. So, but that's me personally.
Right.
Some people, they might not want their wife to work. They might not, or they just want them to work, a 9 to 5, a few days a week, stay home, whatever the case is. So I think that's really dependent on the person. Some people, career doesn't even matter, it's, as long as you're happy together, go for it.
What about her age, though? I've seen a lot of guys, but those are the more typical Egyptian men. When they'll reach out and they're like, Caroline, do you know any young single girls? We're looking. And, they could be in their 40s.
Okay.
And they want someone in their 20s or early 30s, because they are intimidated by the older women because they've become so independent and so career driven.
So I think, for me personally, it would depend. So if I'm 40 and you know, she's 30, maybe, you know. But for me, I don't think I could date someone, you know, if she was like 35 and I'm, you know, 26, I don't think I could do that personally. But, you know,
Would you marry someone though, like if you're 40, would you marry another 40-year-old?
I would.
You would?
Yeah.
So basically for you, it's not the age, it's not the career, it's the person.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Would you marry a woman older than you?
I
Or
would,
you...
but not significantly.
Okay, so you're not against it.
No.
Do you believe that once you're married, you have to have children? Do you think it's selfish to not want children?
No, I don't think it's selfish.
Because a lot of couples now are choosing, like they just realize they just can't,
Yeah.
and they don't want to.
Yeah, I think about it, at the end of the day, the relationship is, you know, between you and your partner. So if you want to have kids, then you should have kids. And if you have the ability to raise kids and you want to have kids, then you should go for it. But for example, maybe you don't feel like you're in a financially good spot. Maybe you don't like the idea of kids. And so, and that's also another thing, you know, you get a lot of pressure from that, you know, from the male and the female side, you know, have kids, you know, like it's time. At the end of the day, you know, you got to do what makes you happy. You can't, you know, I'm all about not coming into that pressures,
Right.
you know, of whatever society you're in. Especially if you feel like you're not going to be a good parent.
Right.
You know, if you feel like you're not going to be a good parent because, you know, you never dealt with kids before, I think probably every new parent feels that.
Right. And I think a lot of people, they feel it's biblical, right, to be married and to have children. And if you don't have children, you're going against God's
Sure.
gift of creation. And then that is a very tough topic, but I think I like what you said. If a parent, if they know they can't be good parents to children, then why would they have the children and not raise them according to what God wants to see in them?
Absolutely.
So I agree. I don't feel like we should be forcing and pressuring people. And of course, unfortunately, society does. This one's a little bit of a tough question.
Okay.
Just because I know when I was growing up, this was a big issue. And I don't know if it still is. And it's a double standard. It's a double standard. But when I was growing up, and, you know, and men and women are at the marriage age, men who are not virgins only want to marry a woman who is a virgin. And that was the expectation, that it was kind of okay for the man to not be a virgin, but the woman, she would be labeled and ostracized.
Sure.
And men don't, no matter what they've done, they feel they deserve to marry someone who is pure. Do you feel like that's fair?
No, I don't think so. And I think with that topic especially is very much a discussion between the couple and what they're comfortable with. So I definitely don't feel like, you know, saying, you know, the man deserves this and the woman is wrong for this. It's, you need to have a discussion, right?
Okay.
You know, I think from like a very early stage in the relationship, you know, what's, you know, kind of like, you know, like what's your sexual history, what's your status, whatever, right? And, you know, if you're okay with what, you know, whatever's in that person's past, then I don't see an issue
Okay,
going
so
forward.
so you're saying they should talk about it, and if he's comfortable, then there's no issue with that. What about if a friend came to you, and he wants to marry a woman who's been divorced?
Okay.
How would you counsel your friend? And he's in love with her. And the reason she got divorced, I don't want to say it was adultery or anything like that. They just grew apart. She and her ex-husband grew apart, and she wanted something different. And now your friend wants to marry her.
I think that's a tough one, because I think the reason is important. I think with, you know, say, you know, there's infidelity, I think that's more clear cut. But things like growing apart, you know, to me, I don't necessarily see that as a valid reason for divorce, because how I see marriage is it's a lifelong commitment. So, you know, that has to be, it can't just be like, oh, okay, you know,
Go ahead,
like
yeah.
tell me, you know, I'm gonna marry this lady because she got divorced because you know, she grew distant. But,
Right.
you know, like, tell me why you grew distant. Why, you know, what made you feel distant? Because, you know, I would kind of worry for him, be like,
Well, how do you know she's not going to do it to you?
exactly.
But also, I mean, I think the Bible is very clear about not marrying someone who is divorced, would you feel comfortable reciting that scripture to your friend, or does it depend on who the friend is?
I think
You
it
don't want to
definitely-
slap them with the Bible, but then again,
Yeah.
do you care, like, how would you respond to that person?
That I honestly don't know.
It's a tough
if,
one.
If it's a close friend, I would definitely feel more comfortable.
Okay.
But in terms of interpretation and how it
Yeah.
applies, I don't think I could honestly
Right.
speak to that.
I think it is very hard, and I myself don't know what I would do either. I think I would pray and ask God to lead the way for us. But anyway, I'm so glad you joined us today, Andrew.
Thank
I really
you.
hope that a lot of our viewers learned something new, even if it's one thing, just how cool Andrew is, and that he was willing to be with me on Girl Talk. And we're going to be bringing you back again.
Okay.
Because next time I want to bring you back, and I want to bring a married man.
Okay.
And I want to talk about, what he and how he entered marriage. When he was single, what was he expecting? And then when he got married, what ended up happening?
Sure.
I was going to invite your friend, David Fonseca, but he's
Okay.
busy with family.
Okay.
But he really wants to come on. So I think it's
That'd
going to
be
be
fun.
fun bringing David and Daniel Fonseca. We're
Okay.
going to have a lot of fun. Thank you, Andrew, for being with us. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.